Hey everyone, Kevin Carr here, and this week on The Movement, I want to cover mobility. I want to go over how to stretch more effectively since I think there's a lot of confusion and frustration surrounding how we can improve our flexibility. Hopefully with these tips and a few tweaks to your current routine, you can be on your way to feeling more mobile than you ever have before. Before we actually talk about how to stretch, first I think we got to change our mindset about how we approach our mobility training. A lot of us just take mobility for granted, and we figure if we just sit in a stretch twice a week for 30 seconds here and there, that it's going to improve our movement quality. But that's not actually how it works. Think of it this way. You have to treat mobility like any other quality that we would be trying to improve in the gym. If you wanted to run a marathon, you'd be on a consistent and progressive running program to try to improve your cardiovascular fitness. If you wanted to add muscle mass or get stronger, you'd be on a consistent resistance training program, and you'd always be trying to add more weight to the bar. Well, the same thing goes for mobility work. Our physiology is our physiology, and it all just plays by the same rules. You need a consistent, progressive stressor to warrant a change in structure and function. So I'm going to give you 3 principles based on that are going to help improve your mobility training so you can move better than you've ever moved before. The first principle I want to cover is breathing. You can't thrive in a place where you can't breathe, and that's especially true for mobility work. Think about what you do when you first get into an uncomfortable position. You probably hold your breath. The inability to respirate is a stressor to the body, and it's a signal saying, I'm not comfortable here. When you're in a stretch and you're not breathing, it causes undue tension in the tissues and greatly diminishes your body's ability to adapt to a new stretch position. So the first thing I do when I'm working with my clients is I just watch to see if they're breathing. A lot of them are going to hold their breath, so I just try to coach them through it. When you breathe, you want to think about trying to breathe in the nose and out the mouth. When you inhale, you want to try to fill up in your abdomen. When you exhale, you want to think about pursing your lips like that and trying to engage your abdominals. One good way to try to remind yourself not to hold your breath and to focus on breathing is rather than focusing on stretching for a length of time, program it for a certain amount of breaths. So rather than saying, 1 minute in this hip stretch, say, I want you to take 10 breaths on the left side. Then when you get done, take 10 breaths on the right side. It changes your focus from just trying to survive the position to trying to thrive and breathe while you're in that position. The next principle I want to talk about is intent. Most people do what I call fake stretching. They kind of just sit in a stretch position and wait it out. Most people, when they stretch, it means they kind of just go through the motions, talk to their friend, or flip through their phone. The problem is, passive stretching won't translate to active, usable range of motion. If we want to create the type of mobility that we can use in sports and in life that will stand up to force, we have to create force while we stretch. When you're in the positions, you have to actively contract the muscles around the joint and pull yourself into the position that you want to improve. When you think about it like strength training, it kind of makes a little bit of sense. When you bench press, you have to actively contract and focus on what you're doing to move the bar. You have to lift that weight till just about the point of failure if you're going to get any sort of adaptation. Because then the tissue responds to the stress and rebuilds itself to meet that demand. The same thing goes for mobility work. When you get in a position to stretch, get the position you want, contract the muscles around the joint, and progressively try to pull yourself deeper in the stretch to develop the neurological strength and control around the joint. This is going to translate to more usable, active mobility that you can use in life. So next time you stretch, rather than kind of just going through the motions and daydreaming or talking to your buddy, get in the position, breathe like we talked about, and actively think about trying to pull yourself into position while contracting all those muscles around the joint to build some neurological control. The third principle I want to talk about is patience. Improving mobility takes time, and we need to be more patient both in the short term and in the long term. In the short term, we simply just need to spend more time in our stretch positions. Most people stretching means 20 or 30 seconds before we switch sides and move on to the next one. But research shows that you need to spend at least 2 minutes with a consistent stretch force for our tissues to even begin waking up and responding to that stimulus. So when you're doing your stretches, spend at least 2 minutes in a stretch position. That's going to be long enough for the tissues to be stimulated and for us to get the message across that we want to create tissue change. In the long term, we have to be more patient as well. You wouldn't expect to add 20 pounds to your bench press overnight. It would take consistent practice in a progressive program over the course of months to add that type of strength. Mobility is no different. You have to consistently practice and consistently challenge the tissue over a long period of time to create real plastic tissue change. So, build a daily mobility program that you can adhere to and consistently practice it every day. Over time, you're going to find that your joints open up in response to that consistent tissue stretch stimulus. All right, well, I hope those 3 tips can help make your mobility work more effective. Tune in next week where I'm going to go over my favorite mobility exercises that I think everybody should practice. Thank you for watching.